All right, so after the business, then we start talking about the brand. And so the business, this is just understanding the structure, who they are, who their competitors are, how they work, what their products and services are. I might add different questions depending, again, who the client is and what all we're doing, but pretty basic, you're figuring out who they are and who they're competing against. When we talk about brand, this is what sets them apart. This is giving personality to the organization. So now that we have the skeleton, we have the framework, we understand who they are like in general terms, we want to get more specific and build a personality around the brand that we're working with. And so I'll ask, what is the one thing? Now, if there's 5 people in the group, one of the things that I do is I have them pull out their cell phones, or if it's live, and I'll have them write down a sticky note, and everybody writes down one thing. So if there's 5 people, you'll have 5 one things. I say, okay, you guys have 30 seconds, and I'll time it, to write down the one thing. If we were known for just one thing, what would it be? And I just want to get a gauge for how they envision themselves. How do you picture yourself? This is super helpful when you're trying to display a brand. There's companies that I've worked with to where they've gone through other design agencies, and they went through 11, 12 different comps of logos, and they didn't feel happy, or they didn't feel comfortable with any of them. And it turns out that the company, the agency that they were working with, really didn't ask them any questions, and so what they were producing was things that the agency thought would work, but it wasn't how the client saw themselves. And so you want to make sure that when you're designing something, that the client really does see themselves as an organization. They see it through the design. So if there's one thing we were known for, it is this thing. And then you just note down what they say. You may or may not use any of these insights, but some of it's going to be helpful in guiding you. The next part about brand is messaging. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here just because, I may or may not include messaging for a client when we do brand strategy. I'm just assuming that this is going to be a design, just a logo design only. But if I were to include messaging like ad sample copy or website messaging, then we'll go through like an elevator pitch exercise. But I'm going to skip that for right now and then go to voice. Okay, now voice, it does speak to the messaging aspect of the brand, but it also can influence design. So when I say voice, I'm talking about our personality, our posture, our tone, our attitude. How do we sound? How do we come across? And so in messaging, like how do we want to sound in our messaging? But if there's also visual language, right? So what is the emotion that we're trying to convey and how we're coming across visually in our design? I used to just ask these questions like, hey, what do you think your voice is? And just try to have them come up with words. But what I found was that clients were coming up with the same words and they were pretty generic. And so what I found helpful was to give a list of examples of different types of adjectives that explain what voice could be. And so it doesn't have to be anything on this list, but usually these things start to get the creative juices flowing, and then I'll circle or highlight the ones that stand out. Now, if there's, again, 15 people in the room, I'm gonna have them do this silently. You guys all write down on your cell phones or on a sticky note or wherever you want to do it. Just, you got 15 seconds to come up with one word, maybe 2 words, depending on who's all in the room. And then we'll take note of that. And what you'll find is the more people you have in the room, you'll find that a lot of them will say, there'll be like 5 for, we sound casual or playful, and then maybe a couple of different ones. And so you'll notice the ones that everybody's saying, oh, we sound like this, and then you pretty much highlight those. If you have 15 different things that they say, adjectives, you want to narrow it down to where you're really highlighting 2 at the max 3 words for how we define our voice. And that goes the same thing for the next couple of slides. So culture. Okay, so we know how we sound, our posture, our attitude. What about your vibe, your environment, your atmosphere, the mood, the people? How would we describe our culture? If people still have a rough time understanding, like, what do you mean by culture? The way I would explain it is if it came down to a hiring decision and you had Jack and John or Jane and Sally or whoever it is, and you have 2 candidates and they both are equally qualified, they both have pretty much the same resume, and it really just boils down to a culture fit. What would the reason be that you're gonna hire this person as opposed to the other person? What are the words that describe our culture? After voice is culture, after culture is design. Now we're starting to get into the visual language. And again, I'm using words here as prompts to help kind of keep the creative juices flowing. And so design, okay, when it comes to our look, our aesthetic, our style of graphics and imagery, what are the words that come to mind? Again, give them a time, 30 seconds, come up with one, at the max, 3 different words that explain the design style that makes sense for them. Okay, so again, this discovery process, you're not telling them what they should look like, you're asking them and you're uncovering the insights from them, the strategies inside them. You're just pulling it out and you're gonna help them prioritize. So again, if you have multiple words or adjectives that they use in this section, then narrow it down to at least 2, at the most 3. Now the thing is, you want to say, okay, let's just pretend that they say, well, we are bold, we are grassroots, and hipster. Bold, grassroots, hipster. Well, does that really tell you a whole lot? No, not really, right? So I always add a slide after this and say, okay, out of all these words, we've landed on these 3 words. What do we mean by bold? And then I started asking them, like, define what you mean by that. And then I might be pulling up references online. Okay, like, is this what you mean by bold design? Because by bold, you might mean one thing, by bold, I might mean another. And so it's really important to not only get the words, but have them define it. And then now that you're in the design part, it's visual, get some visual references to what they mean by the words that they're saying that they identify with. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Make sure this content gets out to more people. And if you are a creative entrepreneur and you're looking to level up, maybe you feel stuck, learn from my mistakes. At agency.butlerbranding.com, we have a free webinar that talks about everything I've learned in scaling Butler Branding since we started in 2012. I'm talking about everything I've learned from brand positioning, marketing, sales, strategy, and project management. So learn to level up for free at agency.butlerbranding.com.